I am very pleased to be part of my first meeting with the Loyola Schools faculty. This is not what I imagined a year ago or even 6 months ago that it would be like this. I was hoping that I could meet you face to face in person and interact with you much more. But we do with what we have. So um, I'm on my sixth week actually as president. I took over last August 1. Very happy to be here. It's a very exciting time. What I thought that what I would do this morning is really just to share my thoughts on how I see the challenges facing the university. It's a very extraordinary time. It's a very stressful time. And there are very difficult challenges, complex challenges that face us. I'd like to give my reflections on that and also offer what principles, guidelines I've been trying to follow as we try to deal with these challenges, as we try to manage the university during this time of uncertainty and volatility. Let me share my screen. Okay. So I was thinking of just sharing on 3 points. The first one is really try to give you a sense of how I see the different challenges and the different concerns that we have to face. We're really using a metaphor, really sailing on rough seas during this school year and maybe even in the next school years to come. I'd like to give you a sense of how I see those different concerns. Second, I'd like to share what I'll call the navigational guidelines. What are the principles that I think should guide us as we try to deal with these concerns, as we try to face these challenges and manage these concerns. And I'd like to end very briefly with what I'll call the North Star. What will guide us in this journey? What will guide us in this voyage? This very rough and difficult voyage. So just 3 points. Then, so first one is the sailing on the rough seas. I think we understand very well that we are facing very difficult COVID issues initially, and we saw that in March, where we suddenly had to do a lockdown. We suddenly had to shift to work from home, and we tried online to try to finish the second semester, and we put in right away the health protocols that we needed, face masks, physical distancing, securing the campus, taking care of our people, making sure everybody will be safe as much as possible. So we dealt with those initial issues of COVID-19, and this was like almost 5 months ago. Um, but I think but I think what we do know is that there's really a tsunami of ever more complex issues that lies ahead. That was just the beginning in mid-March. We could see that an economic recession would be coming because of the quarantine, and it certainly has arrived. The economic recession is here. If you saw the headline of Inquirer this morning, it said that we really expect worsening urban poverty, for example. There is a great slowdown. There is a decrease in OFW remittances. An economic slowdown is here, joblessness, unemployment, etc. So really, this is one of the major disruptions that we have, and perhaps even the first major disruption that we have ever since the Second World War. And that's a very complex issue also that we have to deal with. Then third, we also have to deal with really returning to work. In our case, returning back to school. How do we return back to school amidst these very trying times when we cannot do face-to-face, we cannot do our traditional way of doing our learning and our work, in fact, is we cannot also report back on site to our places of work. So this big effort that we have to return to work and we have to restart the educational process as best as we can. And then, of course, it's not too early to think about what the next normal will be, the new normal. Certainly, there is this sea change that is happening, this post-COVID-19 world that is where it's still very ambiguous, it's still very uncertain what it is, but we do have to start thinking of what it will be. Will online predominate in the future? Will it move to blended? Are we moving towards an open university type of situation? What about the work arrangements of people? Will we be predominantly work from home, etc.? There's this very complex, this very uncertain, this very ambiguous situation, but we do have to start thinking and grappling about this. What will this new normal be like, and how will we function in this new normal? It's always helped me to use this framework. I got this from McKinsey, the consultancy, and they said that we need to think and act across 5 horizons. First is resolve. We need to really address the immediate challenges, and I think Ateneo de Manila has done that very well. And then there is resilience, trying to get back together, and I think we have made efforts there with Ateneo Blue Cloud, with the adaptive design for learning, these going back, trying to really prepare for the online learning platform. Uh, then we have been very careful the past few months that a detailed plan of how we'll return back to school and how we will continue the education that we have been called to provide. And we have begun that for Loyola Schools last Wednesday, and we are carrying out a very detailed plan that was worked out for several months. And as I say, number 4, it's never too early to really start reimagining the next normal. How discontinuous will the post-COVID world be like in terms of learning, in terms of working, in terms of interacting, in terms of how our economy functions, and what are the implications of all of that for the Ateneo de Manila? And then we also have to think of a 5th R, which is reform of how the regulatory and competitive environment in the industry may shift because of all of this. Um, these 5 R's have been actually been translated for particularly for education institutions. Resolve is really focusing on the immediate health threat. I think we did that well. Resilience, I think the past few months we have really tried to be resilient in setting up our remote learning, the Ateneo Blue Cloud, our different seminars to help us prepare for online learning, and the support we're giving to our vulnerable students. Um, then return, of course, is reopening the school. We are beginning that this week, and we are trying to return to as much as possible to really provide the educational services that we have been asked to provide. And as I mentioned already, it's not too early to think about the next normal. What will it be like post-COVID, and how should our systems reinvent themselves, reimagining the next normal. And then, of course, reform is reconsidering the educational priorities in light of this the next normal that is there. So it's really VUCA. It's very volatile. It's very uncertain. It's very complex. It's very ambiguous. But as Marlu says, if we come together, we will survive this, and we will be able to really deliver what we have been missioned to deliver, and the service that we have been called to provide. That's the first part of how I see the challenges. And as I've been trying to formulate these, what guidelines should we follow as we try to sail these rough seas? What guidelines should guide us as we navigate the different concerns, the different challenges that face us in this pandemic, and in this very extraordinary time, in these very trying circumstances. So I've thought of 3 navigational guidelines on how we can navigate this new world, this very uncertain, ambiguous world. First is I think we should work to be a resilient university. Second, I think we should still focus on deeper formation. And third, that we focus also on what we are called for the Ateneo to really have greater social engagement, a word on each. For resilient university, resilience can be thought of like you can think of a bamboo and there's a big typhoon, the bamboo bends, but the bamboo is very resilient. It goes back to its former shape. But I think the resilience that we are talking about is much more than that. It's not just going back to what we were before post-COVID, and it's not in the sense of being resilient that we're able to go back to the business as usual that we had as pre-COVID. Rather, I think the call to resilience to us is that the Ateneo grows stronger under the pressure of this pandemic, that we emerge stronger after the COVID-19 crisis. So it's not back to business as usual, not to back to pre-COVID, not to the ways that we were doing things before, but that we come out stronger because of the pressure of this crisis, because of the pressure of this pandemic. What does that mean? These are some thoughts. I think part of our being resilient university, I think we really need to seriously consider that this online learning platform is a learning platform we'll be on for sure this semester, and it seems to be also even for next semester. And it looks like that the future, the next normal, will be some form of blended learning platform. And that within these learning platforms, I think we should focus on the following to show our resilience, to show how we've become stronger under the pressure, is that we continue to deliver not just online education, but we deliver really quality online education. We deliver quality Ateneo education on these new platforms. And that is certainly a big challenge for us as we still try to learn how to deliver the teaching and the learning that we are called to do. But it's not only that, but we have to make sure that we deliver quality and we deliver quality Ateneo education in the sense of what we have always been saying, that we always strive for academic excellence, even in these new platforms with our sense of magis. Second, I think part of our showing our resilience is really that we are able to deliver whole person Jesuit education, body, mind, and spirit on these new platforms. And this is a real challenge. We know how to do this, I think, in the face-to-face, in-person learning platforms, but with these new learning platforms, we still hope and we need to do our best that we deliver this whole person Jesuit education on these new platforms as part of our cura personalis, our care for the whole person, development of the spiritual, intellectual, moral, artistic, and social and physical virtues of each of our students and of each other. So the whole person sense must be shown to be still present even on these new learning platforms that we are asked to work in. The third one is we, of course, as university, we continue to do not just instruction, but research, outreach, and even formation on these new learning platforms. This will be a real challenge, but we still need to be able to continue to do these essential functions that we think are the essential functions of a Jesuit university, very much in the spirit of our finding God in all things. That's the first navigational principle. The second one is really, I think, whatever we do, and in spite of all the difficulties that we are facing, we still must remember that we are called to provide deeper formation, that we promote programs that will advance the Catholic identity, the Ignatian heritage, and the Jesuit mission of the Ateneo, that we really still show, even in these new learning platforms, commitment to integrate learning, faith, and service into our academic experiences, our co-curricular life, the service learning that is still possible, artistic, religious, humanistic engagement, that we could really make an effort to integrate learning, faith, and service in all these things. I quote Pope Francis in his August 12th address. He says, "The pandemic has highlighted how vulnerable and interconnected everyone is. If we do not take care of one another, starting with the least and with those who are most impacted, including creation, we cannot heal the world. So again, that sense of integration of learning, faith, and service that somehow even in online or even in blended learning platforms, we still are able to show that we can integrate and advance Catholic identity, Ignatian heritage, and Jesuit mission. The third navigational principle that I thought would be important is that the Ateneo continues its social engagement. We still aim to form men and women for others. We still aim to form agents of social change. And I think the pandemic has really focused what this really means at this time, what greater social engagement will be. Uh, I think you will learn as we go through the school year. I'm a big Pope Francis fan, so I will quote a lot from Pope Francis. Uh, the pandemic, he said, has exposed the plight of the poor and the greater inequality that reigns in the world. Certainly, the poor have been the most who have suffered with this pandemic, and we have seen that the inequality that this pandemic has clearly shown. Uh, and that it does not distinguish between different peoples. And therefore, Pope Francis puts it well, and he says the response to the pandemic is therefore dual. First, it is essential to find a cure for this small but terrible virus. On the other hand, he also says we must also cure a larger virus, that of social injustice, inequality of opportunity, marginalization, and lack of protection for the weakest. So again, I think the pandemic, this crisis has in fact sharpened what greater social engagement would mean for the Ateneo during this time. Uh, Pope Francis also challenges us that this greater social engagement must work into really developing new ways of living. He says, in some ways, the current pandemic has led us to rediscover simpler and sustainable lifestyles. And this crisis, in a sense, has given us a chance to develop new ways of living. And I think this is the future, looking forward, that we just do not go back to business as usual after post-COVID, but we really learn from this very life-changing crisis that we move forward where we really try to build a new world uh, where we cultivate values, connections, and activities that are life-giving. We must nurture life-giving ways to trade, to produce, to transport goods. So really affecting the whole way of doing our economic life, our political life, and our social life. And again, this gives us a vision of what greater social engagement should be, for which the Ateneo is committed to do even during the times of a crisis, and especially during the times of a crisis. My last point is this is a difficult voyage, very volatile, very uncertain, sailing on rough seas. But I think we have a North Star. And for me, that North Star that will guide this difficult journey, that will guide our course, is really the Jesuit mission. Um, I've always thought about this in my experience at Xavier University. I said that the proverbial question that keeps Jesuit University presence awake at night is always what makes us distinctive, what makes us different. And for the Ateneo de Manila, I think I keep on asking myself, and I hope you too also ask yourselves, what makes us different, what makes us distinctive from UP, from FEU, what makes us distinctive and different even from other Catholic universities like LaSalle and UST. And I think the answer to that important question is really Jesuit mission. Because in the documents of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuit University is defined as a university that participates in Jesuit mission. It's a very interesting definition. This is the basic definition of what Jesuit University is, that it's a university that participates in Jesuit mission. It does not say that the Jesuit University has Jesuits working in it. It doesn't even say that the Jesuit University is one which is led by a Jesuit. No, the essence of a Jesuit University is that it participates in Jesuit mission. There are many ways that Jesuit mission can be articulated over the many, many years regularly, that is reformulated, different emphasis being given. What Jesuit mission means, I will use what was promulgated last year by our Father General Arturo Sosa, what he calls the Universal Apostolic Preferences, which he calls all Jesuit institutions, all Jesuit works, all Jesuit communities really try to implement and do pay attention to these Universal Apostolic Preferences. And he says this is for the next 10 years, so 2019 to 2029. And there are four of them, showing the way to God through the spiritual exercises and discernment, walking with the excluded, walking with the marginalized, journeying with the youth in their search for a hopeful future, and fourth, caring for our common home, caring for the environment. This is how one way to articulate what Jesuit mission is during this time. And this was, of course, done in 2019, pre-COVID, before the pandemic happened. But I was thinking about it, and I said, you know, the apostolic preferences really do give us a good framework on how we will also deal with the pandemic, to deal with what the mission is calling us to do, even in the midst of this pandemic and its aftermath. Certainly, discernment is very, very important as we really try to determine what this new normal will be, what this better normal will be like. And I think the art and the science of discernment, guided by God's grace, will certainly be very important. We know that the basic attitudes of authentic discernment are openness, generosity, courage, the habit of reflection, having our priorities straight, and not confusing means and ends. So I think the Ateneo really helps people, our students, ourselves, our faculty, our staff, to really learn this beautiful grace of discernment and be open to receiving this grace for practicing discernment. I think we really contribute to the building of a new and a better normal. Certainly, walking with excluded is very, very important as we try to respond to this pandemic, and also even in the building of a better future. We need to walk with those who have been excluded and marginalized, and those who have suffered much from what is happening with the pandemic itself and the other structural injustices. Journeying with the youth is also very important. They are our main stakeholders in our educational enterprise. And we know that this new normal, this better normal, this next normal will really be built by them. And if we journey with them, if we start to understand their hopes, their dreams, we resonate with their questions, then we can really help and influence them, as they are the real agents of change in building this new and better normal that has to be built in a post-COVID world. And finally, of course, caring for a common home, caring for the environment, caring for creation. It's very clear that this pandemic shows us our interconnectedness with the created world, with the environment, and again, a very important emphasis of really being good stewards of the creation God has given us. So I think that the Universal Apostolic Preferences actually give us a good way, a good understanding of what Jesuit mission is during these days. And really our task as Jesuit University is to really participate in this Jesuit mission. And I call it the North Star because I think if we just keep that in mind and allow that North Star to guide us in this very difficult time, in this very extraordinary period, as we try to make our online learning much better, as we try to integrate formation in our programs, as we try to integrate social engagement in our research, in our outreach, in our instruction. I think what will help us not only survive is really if we allow ourselves to always be guided by this North Star, that we continue to participate in Jesuit mission and really bring out what is distinctive in us as a Jesuit university. And I think we will not only survive, but we will also flourish. Daghang salamat, maraming salamat, thank you, and good morning.